Hello and welcome folks, my name is Fake Fairy Tale and this is a video on lighting and shadowing, and I want to go a bit more in depth on the topic because I've discussed it before in previous videos and I've glossed over it a few times, but this time I really want to get in there and show you guys how I go about making this room feel like really coherent based on shadows and the lighting that's in there. And we're gonna be using highlights and all the things, all the tricks that I can think of, and I just want to walk through it with you step by step, and we'll see how long it takes. I'm not entirely sure. We might very well be done in a video, maybe two, and we're just gonna make this room look very real and realistic. I want to put out a little disclaimer, that is that most of the lights I'm using are not in Dungeondraft itself. It's not based Dungeondraft. It's Krager Shadows and Light spec and AOA FX asset packs, and I'll be linking those in the description of the video. It will probably be downloadable from cartography assets, so you can find it all there. And that's what I use most often. Another little disclaimer is that it doesn't really work with the base assets of Dungeondraft itself, like the art style, or at least I don't really think so. So you might want to get some Forgotten Adventures like I use, or Tom Cardo's. That works out as well, I think, if you want to do this style of lighting. However, if you think it's pretty or it looks good in your map and you use an entirely different art style, just do it. In the end, that's what matters, right? What you like and what you want to do. All right, so without further ado, I would like to dive right in. The first thing I want to do is I added in some base shadows already. So along the walls, I turned down the environment lighting to somewhere in the middle. It's that's the code for you if you want to try and replicate this as well. And let's see, accept. I've placed some shadows down behind the barrels and behind the crates, though I still have to line some objects. So I'm gonna put it in fast forward, and I'm gonna show you guys the difference between that. We'll start with it. It has nothing to do with lighting. We just want to line the objects to make sure that they pop from the background. So I'll be right back with you guys, and see you on the other side. Alright, and we're back. I lined all the objects with very small half pathways. When you do this, it's quite important to remember that you put everything on the correct layer. It makes it much easier. You have a lot of different layers that you're using. You can place the shadow paths in between, make sure that objects that are higher cast shadows on objects that are lower and not the other way around. So that really helps. That's something that you want to do. So for example, when you have this little group over here, you have the bottom chests on 1 and the top one on 2. Same goes for here, and here you go even a bit higher. You have the pallet on 1, these little ones on 2, and then you have a bigger one over here that's on 3, and like the crate that's over there as well, and the tools in there are actually on layer 4. That really helps, and it will help in the end to make the lighting look good. You won't have to fiddle around with it as much. And let's check. I see that I actually messed this up on the table, so we're gonna place that on layer 4, because the cups are going to cast a shadow on the table. The playing cards are flat actually, so for those you don't need that at all. I added in a few shadows on objects already, but not that much, because most of it's going to depend on the lighting and where the lighting comes from. I just lined the bigger objects with some shadow pathing along the trails on the sides, and around here as well. Some at the back over there. And we have some larger shadow paths that are along the walls here. That means that we can move on to the next step, which is placing down the actual lights. And I decided for this video to keep it on 2 light sources. Why 2? Well, because if you have a lot of different angles, the room will be very lit up, and that does not necessarily really show what I want to do. I want to have it cast a lot of shadows and make it very distinct where the light comes from and what influence it has on the surroundings. And we're in a basement, so I like it to be dark. So let's see, you have a lot of different lights that you can use. These little ones, which work great for highlighting, but also for lighting up candles or whatever. I really like to use this one. I think this is based Dungeondraft actually, because it's brighter at the center and darker at the, a bit darker at the edges. We could use one of the ones that I just showed. Let's see if I can find it here, because we don't want to light up the top of the lantern. However, we can actually just tone that down with some shadow patterns if we like. But I think we could use this. Is this something? Zoom out a little bit. Or alternatively, I think I like this better. Turn down the intensity somewhat. Nah, that's fine. Yeah, one is fine, and over there we want one as well. And now we can play around with it by reducing the radius somewhat. We could always add in a 3rd light source if we deem that necessary. I think this works all right. We'd also try to do it a little differently, so we make it smaller. Small over there. Okay, and let's continue. We'll see. I'll show you what I mean. So now we have the lights. Oh, I messed that up. There we go. Which means that we can determine where the light has to come from. And that means that we can place down some additional shadows, and that's the first thing I would like to do. Okay, here we are. We take a double shadow path P50 small, and we're going to be looking at where does the light come from. So this one shines a bit from the top because it's higher than the chest itself. Means it's going to cast a shadow that is somewhat diagonal, and we want it to be below the chest. So we'll cast it over there and alongside that edge there. We're also going to have a very thick shadow in between these crates, because not a lot of light will be able to reach there. So we have to darken this out. And this crate is going to cast a shadow to the back as well. So let's add in. Make that even darker. We'll make it smaller and do that the same along this edge. Let's see. Yeah, that's fine. We'll assume that these have the same height. Okay, now we can add in some shadows on the X that is laying here as well. So the light is hitting it from, well, a bit of an angle. So we're going to need to make the backside of it darker. We're going to probably need some shadow in here as well, along this edge here. That side will be darker. The top side will remain quite lit up. Some over here, and then we need a half shadow path, but a very thin one. Move it over to the side a little bit that I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, that works. Make that a bit. There we go. Place it down at an angle so that the head of the axe casts a shadow. We want some shadow on the pitchfork here as well. So we're going to make this darker, and that's because the chest is, the crate is going to block out some light. Not all of it, because it's relatively close to the light source. So over here you will have some light that's leaking through. So this side or this area at the back is going to be quite dark. And we want to keep in mind that the handle of this pitchfork probably remains quite bright, because that will be above the crate. So you want to make sure that the bottom is darker, and as well as the stones around it. Alright, now we have that done. We are going to continue with the rest of this bunch of crates. And there we go. The top crate is going to cast a shadow on the one that's below here as well. So we want to bend that out a bit. Not too much. Same on the other side. And also on the bottom over here. So let's add in shadows. This one will be quite a bit bigger because the light is blocked on this edge, so it will blow over. Probably it will hit the edge of this of the chest, which we can highlight, but this area will probably remain quite dark. And let's see, I think we want to give it a soft transition because right now it's quite harsh. So we'll thin this up, place it on layer 4, and drill it along these edges just to make the transition that teeny tiny bit softer. And I need it to be a smaller pathway. I think this one will do just fine. There. Now there's another ridge that you can do, and that's the ones here on these chests, because these on the boxes, because these areas here are a bit lower and there are already quite some shadows drawn in, but you can place an emphasis on that by just adding in even more shadows than there's already in there. And these ones are too big. So we'll get like so. And also along this line here, just add in one more. Do we need one over here? I don't necessarily think so. I do see that this area is still quite bright, and being the fact that it's all the way at the bottom probably means it's not that bright, not that lit up. So we'll add in something like this. This one is a bit too much. That's thinner. That over here, we'll add in some shadows, make sure that they're properly dark. There we go. We'll leave this edge somewhat lit up. There we go. That looks good. Okay, so we want to do the inside of this crate as well. For that, I want to use these half pathways again. And let's make sure that it's thin enough. And we make it a bit larger. There we go. Already placed down a bit of a shadow in there. We can add in some more, because there's practically no light coming in that crate. So it doesn't hurt to make it quite dark. What I was looking for. And thin right on the back side of the crate because it's higher up. We can highlight the edge later, but the itself will be quite dark. And let's see, that one works, that looks good. I think that around here we have most of the shadows that we need. Still one over there, I see. Because that's cast from that crate over there. Like so. Alright, good. Now we'll take a half pathway again. We'll continue on with these barrels that we have over here. And lay it on layer 3. We're going to darken down the inside of this. And I think actually that was one too far, one click too far. The inside of this ridge over here, because the light is going to be coming from that side. And I think it's about as high as the barrels itself. So the edge over here won't catch as much light, or won't be very lit up. So we need to make sure that that's darker than the rest of the barrel. We can still... Too much? Yeah, that's too much. Do it like so, because this area will probably be a bit more lit up, and we can do that later. Place some emphasis on that by adding in some light. We'll make the shadow a bit larger. Do the same one for the top one over here, and that means that we have to put it on layer 400. Make sure it doesn't get any weird artifacting. And this one will be quite dark in general, especially from the side where the light comes from. And we will just make the top side a bit darker. We have some shadow objects for that. And this light source is closer to these barrels than this one is, so I'm gonna use this light to create some shadows here as well. Because this shadow would cast shadows. This light would cast shadows in the top left direction. This light casts them a bit to the bottom left. So you could do both if you like. I usually prefer to keep things sort of easy. Prefer to stay with one light. And I try to keep it in mind as much as possible. And if you have two light sources that are really close together, things change. Then you want to make sure that you have a shadow that's appropriately large for both lights, but it's quite it's not very dark, presumably, because there are two light sources quite close by. So we'll put it on layer 300 to make sure that it doesn't cast a shadow on the top side of this barrel, although we could along the edge in a minute. And it'll probably be something like this. There. That side is darker, and the teapot is quite dark as well on the left side. Okay, that's cool, and we'll make it very thin and make sure that the back of the barrel darker than the front. Awesome. And then we'll continue on a bit further down. This is quite equally far removed from the two light sources, so we'll just assume we want to maybe make this area a bit brighter here as well, but we'll see in a second. We want to make the backside darker. This is not going to be lit up at all. Probably there won't be any light source close to dynamite, so we can make the chest quite dark because no light is really shining into the crate. That may be a bit too much. There. I will take a double shadow and we'll just make sure that the backside is dark. And something you might want to keep in mind is that if this would be a battle map, I wouldn't go as dark with as much of a contrast as I'm doing right now, because this corner is just very dark and it's very hard to see what's actually there. but this is, I'm kind of overdoing it a little bit to make sure that it's clear. And also for people who have less expensive monitor that isn't able to really convey true black colors. If you have one of those, it's very hard to see how dark I'm making things here. Also, for people who have not as expensive monitors as some others do, where black colors aren't as black as you would have on a very expensive monitor, make sure that for everybody it's clear that how this works and how the shadow and lighting interacts with each other. So we actually, I think, can turn down the walls a little bit too, and make sure that just that area is quite dark. Same thing over there. All right. We want some more shadows in the middle there, I presume. Just a little bit. I think that's okay. And along the edge here. And we'll finish up the barrel here with a shadow circle. Oh. Like that. Top side is a bit darker as well. This is good. Let me just quickly go about this, make sure everything looks good. There. That's something we're going to be doing next, I think. Yeah. So we'll take this barrel. And this barrel casts some shadows on the outside of this rim, so that the inside is actually quite lit up. So make that a bit brighter. We'll do another edge on the outside of this barrel. And we probably want a larger shadow around here because this ridge is going to block some light, meaning that the area just around the barrel isn't as bright as the rest. We'll just, there we go. That's good. I don't think we need to do that much more here. I'll darken out the top side of those. We can actually do that maybe with an object already, of the lanterns, to make sure that that's not too bright, because that wouldn't make sense. Because the light is coming from underneath. And now we want to do the table still. And for that I use the shadow path again. They're very small because we're going to be using them for the cups. And I'm going to have this cup cast a shadow somewhat to that side. This one more up. This one, I'll do it around the back side, just in general. And I think this one is too far away. Because the shadows won't be that long, it's a small object. I'll extend them a little bit. Actually see that I did a little boo-boo here, because this is to be on another angle compared to the lights. Let's fix that. More or less. Okay. Now we'll be going to the chairs, and they are casting a shadow inwards, so the inside should be much darker because the light is coming from the back. And part of it's blocked out by the table as well. So this side is very dark indeed. This is more at an angle. So we want some shadows on the right side of these chairs. Let's see what kind of things we want to use here. I think 2 will do, but we want to make it double. And we'll just draw in some shadows there. And we'll do the seating. I will be highlighting the backside of this here, I think. And the table itself doesn't cast that much shadows because, well, light source come from here and light source come from there. I just make that a little bit. And we'll place some shadows around here. Okay. I think that'll do. I think that shadow-wise we have quite everything we want. Yeah, that looks good. Then we'll continue on to lights. And now we're going to make use of these smaller lights, or at least you can make them. And I want to start with the somewhat larger highlights and areas where we want to have a glow. Turn down the intensity. Make it a bit more orange. That's fine. I'll just go place down some lights on places that I think catch more light than the rest. And so we have some over there. Some over here. That might be overdoing it if we also want to add in a highlight over there, which I'll show you guys in a minute. This side will be probably catching some more lights. And also here. And I turn it all the way down in intensity and range because I want it to be very subtle and not too obvious that there's actually a light source here. And we're going to brighten up the center of the room a bit more as well. Make sure that the light carries all the way to the object, because otherwise it becomes very apparent that there's a light source there. But that's not what we want. And let's see, I'll make it a bit smaller again. Good. Edge, make sure that's lit up a little bit. Here in between the pairs. So below. Around those edges, that's brighter. We'll light up the top here. Maybe even add in a highlight there to make it really pop. And that's good. Add in a few more over there. And I want to brighten it up directly around the lanterns. That, and then we'll grab some highlights. I thought I just turned it, but oh well. I think we can turn them up in intensity a little bit to make sure that we see where we've placed them. How that looks. We're going to need 1, 2, 3 over here to make these smaller. Make sure that they fit on the barrels. Now we can maybe brighten them up a bit in intensity. Let's say 1.2. That's 1. We'll fix this one. Make it smaller. Place it on the ridge to make sure that it fits. And we'll turn it a bit further out because the light's coming from this side specifically. Also, put that on 1, 2. Toy around with it a little bit. Bit bigger. It's a bit finicky to do, but it works with some patience. And we'll grab the last one over here. First make it small. Turn it on its side. It can go smaller. Place it on the edge. That's an appropriate highlight. I think this one can be even brighter, because that's what's catching the light, and the side of the barrel will be properly lit up. That's something that you want to see, of course. And let's see if we can add in a highlight over there. And I'm not sure which would serve best for that. This kind of works with these with these edges. Yeah, that's good. That looks good. All right, now we want to add in one on the X. But I want it to be a thinner line. Feel like a strip. That could do. This could do. Make it diagonal, and we have to. No, I think it's too thin actually. I'm gonna go back to these. Whoops, beam lighting. And that's the one I want. Get it at the right angle. Make it smaller to fit the size of the X head. And we have to turn it a little bit because it's not entirely right. I'll turn it up in intensity to make it more apparent that it's there. And I want there to add another one that's like this very small half moon. Let's see if we can make this work along the blade of the X. And maybe we can add in a thin light or very faint to make the transition a bit more gentle. No, these are too big. Bear with me here for a moment, please. I think we can do this and make it even. No, that's not gonna work. Placing down the lights. Can't seem to find it. That works as well. There's the highlight. All right, we'll add in even more highlighting with these. Yeah, it's decent. Then we want some over here. We want some over, I think over here too. One over here, one on the side, one on that side. Because that's being directly struck by the lights, so that has to be very lit up, be very awesome. And I will take these, turn them on their side, and okay. Then we have this one over here. It can be even a bit brighter, larger, specifically along the edge there. think this will stay. Yeah, that will remain dark. Only that edge. Now we want to highlight the chest itself, of course. Make sure that it matches the crates. Yeah, I like that, and we want to place in a thin highlights on the crate as well. Awesome. Let's see. I think these are a bit too far away for very thick highlight. We'll just do it a teeny tiny bit. We'll make a thin strip along that side and along that side, on that side, along that side. But we will make sure that we put the intensity quite low, so that's not too apparent that there's a highlight there. Is it diagonally? Make it larger and tone down in intensity. There we go. And one on the side. Bit at an diagonal again. And 0.7. We'll just check how it looks in a minute, because with all the symbols, the light symbols, it's quite hard to see what you're doing. Especially if you're going for a very subtle difference. 0.6 works, I think. Yeah, these are still too bright. Oh, that's already on 0.6. We turn it up 0.5. Yeah, that's all right, I think. And we need a highlight over here. Again, a half circle. I'm just working my way through the room now. I think we need to place them somewhere we can easily see them. And we have to make it just that little bit smaller, because it doesn't match the curve exactly. I think that's it. Do this a little bit on gut feeling. Oh, it's a little bit too small. And we'll place down a last one for the bottom side. So there you have the highlights. That looks good. We need some on the chairs. There. There. And we can do the same very faintly on the table here. And there. That one's one. Should have one, I think. We'll place it over there, but we tone it down in intensity because highlight can be really faint. It's here. Has to be a little bit bigger. Yeah. And also lower intensity. And this will same. Intensity. Cool. Then I'm going to adjust it a little bit with some shadows still. And some very faint lights. Oh, I'm not sure if that's necessary. I think this looks quite cool. I'll make some adjustments here and there. Edo burrito. Okay, I think I would like to call this finished. I do like how it turned out. It looks good. The lighting is cool. It has a very gloomy feeling, but not too much. Because you can quite easily overdo it, though. This side might be a bit overdoing it in comparison to the rest. Because the differences here are a bit more apparent. Awesome. It's already a bit better. So I hope this is a little bit clear for you guys how I go about it. It's really a matter of patience and just going through it step by step. The most important thing is, of course, that you do the bigger shadows first, the things that are not that or the bigger shadows that are not directly influenced by the lighting, to make sure that you just create some depth and make sure that you pull away all the different pieces of furniture from each other and from the floor. And after that, you can add in the lights, start adding some specific shadows that are cast by that light. You can do that on objects, and I hope it was quite clear how I did that as well, to make sure that it really makes sense in the room. So for example, this area I like a lot because it's appropriately dark, the highlights are good, not too much in your face. I think it's the same thing for the barrels. We could add in some more shadows and maybe a highlight on the side, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. And at some point you're going to have to also make a choice between spending like hours and hours and hours on fixing a little area, or just be happy with what you have. And I tend to spend a bit longer than I actually should, but oh well, doesn't matter. And I think you could use this for an interesting combat encounter or whatever, if you have to pick some stuff up. I don't know, something fun. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions about how I approach this, or just specific tips you need on your map or something that you're trying to do, do feel free to reach out in the comments. I'll be sure to add in the script. I'll be sure to add in the asset packs that I used in the description of this video. So the Kragas lights and shadows and the AOA. And thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please hit the like, favorite, and subscribe button. It helps to get my video out there, and hope to see you again in the next video.